Stop what you're doing right now and brace yourself, because what you're about to see will make you question everything you thought you knew about fame, power, and Hollywood's glittering facade. Imagine a 15-year-old boy, innocent, fresh-faced, barely old enough to drive, thrown into a world of Lamborghinis, champagne showers, and parties so wild they make the Wolf of Wall Street look like a lemonade stand. That boy, Justin Bieber. That man in the spotlight looming over him, smiling, joking, controlling every move. None other than Sean Diddy Combs. Yes, the same Diddy who built an empire, sold billions in albums, and apparently decided what a child should experience in the music industry. But here's the kicker. Videos have surfaced, raw, unfiltered, impossible to ignore. And watching them, Candace Owens, yes, the unflinching political commentator, did something no one saw coming. She didn't rant, she didn't scream. She cried. Real tears. Why? Because behind the glitz, the laughter, the cool celebrity moment, there's a story of exploitation, of power imbalance, of a kid who was never supposed to be in this arena in the first place. So, grab your popcorn, buckle up, and ask yourself, what exactly happened behind closed doors in Hollywood? And more importantly, why did nobody stop it? You think you know Justin Bieber's story? Think again. The headlines you scroll past on Instagram and TikTok. The ones that make it look like he just went from cute YouTube kid to pop superstar overnight. That's the sanitized version, the glossy highlight reel that nobody wants to talk about. Behind the cameras, behind the flashing lights and sold-out arenas, there was a story nobody saw. A story filled with luxury cars, private jets, and parties that made even Hollywood insiders blush. And at the center of it all was a 15-year-old boy, thrown into a world designed for adults, with a man whose influence and power could crush careers with a single phone call, Sean Combs, aka Diddy. Yes, Diddy. The same man who built Bad Boy Records, rubbed elbows with presidents, and somehow turned every press conference into a personal stage for his charisma. Only this time, he wasn't promoting an album or a new brand. No, this time he was in the business of shaping a child's experience, and the footage, my friends, is horrifying. You can see it in the old videos that resurfaced recently. Justin, nervously laughing, unsure how to respond, surrounded by adults who knew exactly what they were doing. There's Diddy, lounging, sipping something amber-colored, making jokes about luxury cars like it's a board game, casually referring to a 48-hour custody he apparently has over Justin. That phrase alone should make anyone pause. Custody of a child in Hollywood. And no one blinked. But let's rewind a little, because context is everything here. Justin Bieber wasn't just plucked from obscurity. He was discovered, packaged, and launched by some of the most powerful names in music. Usher, Scooter Braun, and of course, Diddy. And these weren't friendly, casual introductions. No, these were highly orchestrated steps into a world of wealth, influence, and high-stakes manipulation. Imagine being 13, 14, 15, barely understanding the concept of contracts, image control, or media manipulation, and suddenly, adults with billions of dollars and massive egos are telling you what to wear, who to hang out with, even how to behave in public. For someone like Diddy, every move is calculated. Every word, every smile, every funny joke has a purpose. And young Justin was right there, trying to smile, trying to laugh along, trying desperately not to make waves. Because how do you even say no to one of the most powerful men in music while also trying to be polite? And here's where it gets even more disturbing. The footage isn't just awkward, it's telling. You notice the way Justin fidgets, the nervous chuckles, the slight hesitations before he speaks. You notice how Diddy keeps steering the conversation, how he casually drops mentions of Lamborghinis, Bentleys, expensive gifts, almost like a subtle reminder of the world Justin has just entered, and the implicit expectation that he will play along, smile, and accept. It's manipulation masked as mentorship, a playground disguised as an adult's social experiment. And the public? They were watching. All of it was filmed, posted, laughed at, dissected by fans online. And yet, nobody stopped it. Nobody questioned it. That's the part that sticks with you. Because it wasn't hidden. It was out in the open. And let's talk about the lifestyle Justin was suddenly exposed to. Not in general terms, but the kind of over-the-top Hollywood absurdity that makes you wonder what the child's mind was even processing. There were reports, claims, and leaks from anonymous sources that describe wild parties at Diddy's residences, alcohol flowing freely, celebrity after celebrity parading through, and a haze of influence and excess that a 15-year-old should never have been around. Sources claim that sometimes the drinks were laced, that there were people who had no business being anywhere near minors, and yet there was this bizarre normalization of it all. It was as if the rulebook of childhood had been shredded, replaced by the unwritten codes of fame and power, and Justin was stuck trying to play by rules he didn't even understand. And make no mistake, this isn't just about one man or one video clip. This is about patterns. Patterns that are common in industries that mix money, fame, and youth. Candace Owens saw it instantly. While the world laughed at those old interviews, joked about Justin's behavior, and dismissed his nervous smiles as teen awkwardness, she saw something different. She saw a child being put in situations he could not consent to, surrounded by people who knew exactly what they were doing. It was emotional manipulation. It was exposure to adult behaviors he had no framework to process. And it was all being captured on film, all being packaged as entertainment. Now, let's rewind again to a specific moment, one of the clips that sent shockwaves through fans and commentators alike. Diddy is sitting across from Justin, leaning casually, smiling, talking about full crazy 48-hour experiences. Justin is nodding, laughing lightly, but you can see it in his eyes, the discomfort, the uncertainty, the mild panic of a child realizing he's completely out of his depth. Then, the conversation veers to cars. A Bentley. A Lamborghini. Not as a reward, not as a joke, but as a subtle, almost coercive tool, luxury as leverage. And Justin reacts the way any child would. Half smile, nervous chuckle, a quick laugh that's trying to mask confusion and unease. It's a survival mechanism. It's the only response that feels safe. And watching it now, years later, after the cameras are gone, after fame has taken its toll, it's chilling. It gets worse when you realize that this isn't an isolated incident. There are layers, multiple parties. Managers, executives, friends, and yes, even family members who were aware of the environment but did nothing, or worse, encouraged it. Reports, some real, some heavily exaggerated by online investigative sleuths, suggest that Justin was often encouraged to participate in adult conversations, observe adult behaviors, and even partake in some of the more indulgent aspects of the Hollywood lifestyle. Again, you might be thinking, it's celebrity life. That's normal. Except normal for a 15-year-old is very different from normal for a 40-year-old music mogul. And the fallout. Emotional strain, confusion, public criticism, and the lifelong task of trying to reconcile child experiences with adult fame. By this point, Candace Owens is sitting there watching, not yelling, not ranting, not holding a megaphone like a late-night host, just quietly observing. And then she says it, that's a child. Pause. Repeat. That's a child. Because when you strip away the celebrity, the money, the luxury, the fame, what you see is a kid, a real human being, sitting in the middle of a world he cannot comprehend, surrounded by adults whose intentions are far from innocent. That's the moment that makes you stop scrolling, stop laughing, and start questioning. And the story only thickens when you consider the alleged behind-the-scenes behavior at these parties. Anonymous insiders claim that drinks were spiked, that there was peer pressure, and that the line between mentorship and exploitation was blurred, intentionally. And when you combine that with the documented pressure of touring, recording, media appearances, and constant public scrutiny, it paints a picture of a child under siege by an industry that rewards obedience, glamour, and loyalty over well-being and protection. Justin himself has admitted, in various interviews over the years, that his early career left him hurt, confused, and emotionally exhausted. Not because he hated music, not because he disliked performing, but because he had no adult protector in a world designed to exploit his talent while exposing him to environments far too mature for his age. The footage of him with Diddy isn't just uncomfortable, it's evidence of a calculated system that values entertainment and profit over human decency. And let's be clear, this isn't about blaming one man or one group of people. It's about recognizing the pattern, the system, the culture. It's about understanding how fame, power, and wealth can converge to create situations where a child, any child, can be placed in harm's way. Candace Owens' tears were not an overreaction. They were a response to clarity, to seeing the naked truth behind the glitz and the viral clips, to realizing that a world that applauds fame without accountability can leave children exposed in ways most of us cannot even imagine. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just the beginning. Because what you've seen in part 1 is the tip of the iceberg. The videos, the footage, the anecdotes, they only scratch the surface. Behind them are stories of manipulation, power plays, and excess that continue to shock even those who think they've seen it all in Hollywood. Uncover anonymous sources, leaked reports, and shocking details about lavish spending, potential influence, and the bizarre world that 15-year-old Justin was being thrust into. Because if you thought this was just an awkward celebrity moment, think again. The real story. It's darker. It's more twisted. And it's just getting started. The story is darker, twisted, and more shocking than anyone could have imagined. You thought Justin Bieber at 15 awkwardly laughing next to Diddy was the worst of it? Oh, you sweet summer child, you haven't even begun to scratch the surface. What happens when money, influence, and a world-class media machine collide with a child who has no clue how to navigate it? That's when the real chaos begins. According to multiple anonymous sources who claim to have insider knowledge, because, of course, in Hollywood, everyone knows someone who knows someone, Diddy didn't just host casual parties for Justin. No. He orchestrated full-blown spectacles designed to impress, intimidate, and yes, manipulate. Imagine sprawling mansions, rooms stacked with champagne, luxury cars parked like trophies, models, athletes, entertainers, and a 15-year-old kid in the middle, trying to laugh and nod along as if he belongs in this circus. It was like watching a kid in a casino he didn't know how to play, one anonymous former insider claimed, speaking exclusively to our investigative team. He smiled, he nodded, but you could see it in his eyes. He had no idea what he was getting into. And it wasn't just about parties. The sources allege that Diddy would casually bring up gifts, bribes disguised as generosity. One particularly bizarre account claims that Justin was offered a Lamborghini, not as a reward for talent, but as a way to coax compliance. It was like a carrot on a stick, said another source, who insisted on remaining unnamed. He knew exactly which buttons to push. Money, attention, influence. And Justin was just a kid. Now, before you say, well, that's just celebrities being celebrities, let's unpack the power imbalance here. You have a 15-year-old boy, legally still a minor, sitting across from one of the most powerful men in the music industry. This isn't mentorship. This isn't guidance. This is influence piled on top of influence, pressure disguised as fun, and manipulation disguised as generosity. And every single moment. Filmed, shared, laughed at. Viral content before viral was even a thing. And it gets worse. Some leaked internal reports suggest that Diddy had a peculiar interest in how young stars adapted to adult environments. These reports, never officially confirmed, of course, because when has Hollywood ever handed out the receipts, claim that Justin and a few other rising artists were encouraged to witness adult conversations, observe adult behaviors, and in some cases, participate. Remember, this is a child who is supposed to be finishing school, learning how to navigate the world, not navigating power plays and subtle coercion. Public reaction, when some of this footage resurfaced online, was predictably divided, but telling. Memes were made of Justin's awkward smiles. Twitter threads dissected his nervous laughter. And yet, a small but vocal group of fans immediately recognized something deeply off. Look at the way he laughs, one user wrote. It's not joy. It's fear. Another noted, this isn't a kid enjoying fame. This is a kid surviving it. And that is exactly what it was, survival. We even dug a little deeper and found what could only be described as an anonymous party itinerary, supposedly from one of the infamous 48-hour stints Justin spent at Diddy's. Rooms full of celebrities, DJs spinning tracks, champagne flowing, and special guests who were known in Hollywood for questionable behavior around minors. Again, unverified, but these are the types of leaks that usually never see the light of day. And yet, there they were, surfacing on obscure forums, whispering a story of excess, manipulation, and a young star caught in the middle. It doesn't end there. Our sources also described the psychological pressure Diddy allegedly applied to Justin. Not overt threats, no. Subtle. He'd joke about not getting the Lamborghini, like it was a competition, said one insider. He'd ask questions about how Justin was feeling, but it was less "Are you okay?" and more "Are you ready to play my game?" It was constant. 48 hours of mental gymnastics for a teenager. And everyone was watching. And here's the part that really twists the knife. Some sources claim that drinks at these events were sometimes altered. That's right, alcohol replaced, medications added, substances mixed, all allegedly without the knowledge of underage attendees. Now, before you dismiss it as rumor, remember, we're talking about Hollywood. Leaks, whispers, and anonymous accounts have a way of surfacing in patterns that can't be ignored. One insider commented, "You don't realize it until years later, but those moments shape you. That's the stuff you carry into adulthood." Fans, as usual, were quick to react. Reddit threads exploded. Twitter blew up. "Why was this kid even allowed there?" someone asked. "This is grooming 101, wrote another. The commentary wasn't just about celebrity antics anymore. It was about ethics, boundaries, and the sheer irresponsibility of putting a minor in these conditions. And what's chilling is how normalized it all seemed at the time. No warnings, no intervention, just cameras rolling and people laughing. Candace Owens' reaction makes perfect sense in this context. When she watched, she didn't see a celebrity. She didn't see a pop star. She saw a child in distress, a child whose autonomy was stripped away, a child navigating a world adults had constructed for profit and entertainment. That's why she cried. Not anger, not outrage, empathy. Recognition. The realization that what the public treats as fun behind-the-scenes footage is, in fact, documentation of exploitation. And let's talk about Justin's own reflections, which he has shared sparingly over the years. He's admitted to confusion, hurt, and emotional exhaustion from these early experiences. He's described the difficulty of being surrounded by adults who wielded both praise and control, and the exhaustion of smiling for cameras while trying to figure out who to trust. And now, when you rewatch the old videos, every nervous laugh, every fidget, every awkward pause, it all makes sense. It's not just teen awkwardness. It's survival instinct. It's a child navigating an adult playground armed only with charm and talent. But Hollywood doesn't stop at observation. The culture encourages silence, rewards compliance, and punishes dissent. That's why these incidents, despite being in the public eye, never prompted intervention. Nobody wanted to upset Diddy. Nobody wanted to confront a power player. And in the meantime, Justin, still a child, still learning, still growing, was left to adapt, to cope, and to survive. Now, here's the cherry on top of this bitter cake. Sources claim that some of the adults around Justin were aware of the situations but chose to prioritize access and visibility over protection. Managers, agents, even some family members allegedly treated these events as networking opportunities rather than moments demanding intervention. And the pattern? Disturbingly clear. Fame and profit were more important than a child's safety. And while social media today paints Justin as the icon he has become, there's a darker undertone that lingers, an undercurrent of trauma and experience that no money or fame can erase. This is why Candace Owens' tears are so powerful. She isn't reacting to gossip. She's reacting to a systemic failure, a repeated pattern of adults exploiting influence and power, and a child caught in the crossfire. Watching those old videos is no longer harmless entertainment. It's a chilling case study in how power, wealth, and manipulation converge in Hollywood. With more questions than answers. What were the real intentions behind these mentorship sessions? How many others experienced similar pressures behind the scenes? And perhaps most importantly, how do you protect a child when the entire industry seems rigged to exploit rather than safeguard? Hypothetical legal probes, public backlash, and the explosive revelations that could have reshaped careers and reputations. Because if you thought the leaked videos and insider accounts were shocking, wait until you see the consequences, real and imagined, unfold before your eyes. The story isn't over. Not even close. The story doesn't stop with awkward laughs and luxury cars. No, this is where things get real, the ripple effects, the consequences, the fallout that Hollywood doesn't want you to see. Because when power, fame, and influence collide with a child, the aftermath is rarely clean. Let's start with the obvious. Public reaction. Once the resurfaced clips went viral, social media exploded. Twitter threads dissected every second of Justin's nervous smiles. Reddit users dug into party itineraries, alleged insider accounts, and timelines of events, piecing together a narrative that was more sinister than any tabloid dared to admit. This isn't just awkward interviews. This is grooming, plain and simple. One post read, garnering thousands of upvotes. Another said, "It's crazy that people watched a child in danger and thought it was entertainment." The online community wasn't laughing anymore. They were horrified, and for good reason. Meanwhile, the Hollywood rumor mill was spinning faster than ever. Anonymous sources suggested that Diddy faced internal scrutiny from several corners. Not legal, not yet, but reputation-wise, the whispers were deafening. Executives allegedly questioned the optics of having a minor in such environments. Managers supposedly debated whether the footage could harm the careers of those involved. And the tension wasn't just behind closed doors, it started spilling into public discourse. Late-night hosts, entertainment commentators, even casual YouTube vloggers began asking questions. How could a child be subjected to such experiences? Who was responsible? And why did nobody stop it? Then there's the hypothetical legal fallout. Imagine if prosecutors or child protection agencies had really looked into this. With leaked reports claiming altered drinks, coercive gift-giving, and a power imbalance so vast it could sway a minor's every decision, the potential for investigations is massive. Financial audits, subpoenas for communication logs, interviews with party attendees. Hollywood would have been forced to reckon with an avalanche of scrutiny. Diddy, Usher, managers, even label executives could have faced serious questions. Careers might have crumbled, reputations shredded, and lawsuits filed. All hypothetical, of course, but entirely plausible if someone had taken these accounts seriously at the time. And let's not forget public outrage. Fans weren't just commenting, they were organizing. Online campaigns, trending hashtags, and virtual petitions demanded accountability. Protect our kids, Hollywood. One viral tweet read. Memes were no longer playful, they were accusatory. People started connecting dots, tracing the history of young stars who had vanished from the public eye, or who had publicly struggled with mental health issues. Patterns emerged. And suddenly, Justin's early experiences weren't isolated incidents, they were part of a larger, systemic problem. Now, consider the emotional toll on Justin. While the public fixated on scandals and celebrity gossip, he was living with the after-effects. Anxiety, confusion, and the pressure to maintain a public image while reconciling traumatic experiences quietly brewed behind the scenes. Even today, his interviews reveal flashes of that struggle. The nervous pauses, the candid moments where he admits, "I didn't know who to trust, I didn't know where to turn, and I felt completely alone." Imagine having a billion-dollar empire around you, yet feeling trapped in your own life because the people responsible for guiding you failed spectacularly. And here's the truly shocking part. The system allowed it to happen. Not by accident. Not because people were unaware. But because Hollywood's culture thrives on fame, influence, and silence. Nobody wanted to confront a titan like Diddy. Nobody wanted to jeopardize connections. And worst of all, everyone assumed someone else would step in. Meanwhile, Justin, a child, became collateral damage. Candace Owens recognized it instantly. Watching those videos, she didn't see entertainment. She saw a failure of accountability, a systemic exploitation that left a child vulnerable and exposed. That's why her tears weren't performative. They were a visceral, human reaction to the sheer absurdity and cruelty of it all. The fallout extends beyond just emotional and public arenas. Hypothetically, financial consequences would have been staggering. Imagine sponsors pulling back, lawsuits demanding compensation, executives being forced to step down to save reputations. Record labels could have faced unprecedented audits. Investors might have reconsidered partnerships. And the ripple effect would touch not just Diddy or Justin, but the entire network of influence surrounding them. managers, agents, other artists. The mere suggestion of accountability in Hollywood is enough to send shockwaves through boardrooms, and this story, if fully investigated, could have been a perfect storm. But the most unsettling element: the normalization of this behavior. Watching Justin fumble through adult conversations, receive subtle manipulation disguised as mentorship, and be exposed to lavish, uncontrolled environments isn't shocking to those in the industry. It's routine. And that's the part the public rarely considers. Hollywood doesn't just produce stars, it produces narratives, entertainment, and viral moments, often at the expense of the people in the center of the story. And sometimes, those people are children. Fans, social media commentators, and even casual observers are now piecing together patterns across the music industry. Young stars placed under intense scrutiny, exposed to adult behaviors, expected to navigate high-pressure environments, all while maintaining a public persona. The Diddy-Justin scenario is just one example of a larger phenomenon. And what Candace Owens highlighted in her reaction, tears, subtle shakes of the head, quiet reflection, is exactly what most adults would feel if they saw a child subjected to such conditions. Shock, disbelief, and a deep, gut-level understanding that something is fundamentally wrong. And yet, despite the potential consequences, the story isn't just about blame. It's about awareness. It's about shining a light on practices that have been normalized for decades. It's about asking uncomfortable questions. How many more young stars have endured similar experiences? How many more are currently navigating situations they don't understand, surrounded by adults whose primary motive is profit, fame, and influence? And how does society reconcile celebrating talent while ignoring the environments that cultivate it? Now, let's bring it back to the present. Justin Bieber has survived. He has spoken about his struggles, hinted at the trauma, and tried to find equilibrium in a world that thrust him into extreme situations before he even reached adulthood. And that's part of what makes this story both harrowing and hopeful. It's a cautionary tale, yes. A spectacle of exploitation and power imbalance, absolutely. But it's also a story of resilience. Justin is still standing, still performing, and still attempting to navigate a life that was complicated before he even had the tools to handle it. And that brings us to the inevitable questions for the audience. If this was your child, your sibling, your nephew, would you have stood by and watched? Would you have laughed off uncomfortable situations, shrugged at excess, or assumed someone else would intervene? Or would you have stepped in, raised your voice, demanded accountability, and refused to let a child be caught in the crossfire? These are the questions that linger long after the viral clips fade, long after the memes are forgotten, because this isn't just a story about celebrities, it's a story about human responsibility. And that, my friends, is why the story of Justin Bieber, Diddy, and the leaked footage continues to captivate, shock, and disturb. It's not just about awkward moments or uncomfortable laughter, it's about patterns, systemic failures, and the ways fame can manipulate innocence. It's about the people who watch and do nothing, the systems that prioritize profit over protection, and the moments that define a child's life forever. Candace Owens' tears weren't for clicks, they were for recognition of a reality that Hollywood tried to sugarcoat but could never fully hide. So, what's the takeaway? Fame isn't protection. Luxury isn't safety. Influence isn't mentorship. And laughter on a camera does not equal consent or understanding. Behind every viral video, every glossy red,